Your boy Crisscross 304 checking in for segment two. Segment two, we're going to talk a little bit about UFC. In this past weekend, it went down in dramatic fashion. Of course, there were 5 or 6 straight decisions at UFC Greenville. That was in South Carolina just 2 days ago on Saturday night. But then it got explosive toward the end, as you had 2 knockouts, one by Randy Brown, which was moved to the co-main event when Rob Font and John Lineker was canceled. So Randy Brown knocked out Bryan Barberena in round 3. It looked like it was going to go to the decision, but instead you had a knockout by Randy Brown in the 3rd round near the end of the fight with a knee to the stomach and then a punch to the face. Bryan Barberena went down, and that was it. He could not get back up. He didn't even tap out. Randy Brown was very professional, stepped back, realized the other guy couldn't fight no more, and then the ref was forced to step in, and the fight was stopped. And then you had the shocker of the night, number 5, featherweight division. Renato Moicano, black belt in jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu that is, very good fighter. Many thought he would win against the Korean zombie Chan Sung Jun, but it didn't happen. And just to give you a quick recap, let's listen to it again, and here's the sound and the shock during the knockout.
Oh, a big punch by the Korean zombie! Moicano's down! Can he hold on? And the fight is over. Wow! Goodness gracious. I never saw that coming, I'll be honest. I was saying before this fight started that Renato Moicano is going to win this fight, no problem. And the Korean zombie on the first punch, flush to the face, Moicano goes right to the ground. And he was dazed and confused. So that was the live reaction from UFC Greenville this past Saturday night. Again, Renato Moicano getting shocked in the first minute, completely dazed and confused. The Korean zombie ducked the left-hand jab from Renato Moicano and then came back quickly with the right, and that was it. Moicano's on the ground, dazed and confused, tried to recover. Took another 10 seconds or so, and then the ref finally had to step in as Moicano could just not fight back. He couldn't defend himself as he was hit with that vicious right hand. So that ended the night in a dramatic way. Those last 2 knockouts after 5 straight decisions. So thank goodness for that, and the UFC that it ended with some excitement. Speaking of excitement, you have UFC Minneapolis coming this Saturday night, and you got Francis Ngannou will take on Dos Santos, which should be a very explosive fight. 2 big guys going to go toe-to-toe in the ring. You have some other good fights along the way leading up to that main event this Saturday night. And they've already had media day interviews, and check those out on YouTube. Also today, media day, kind of surprised me. I wasn't ready for this, but media day for UFC 239 is already complete. Face-offs are on the channel. You want to check that out. And again, as I've said leading up to UFC 239 over the past 2 or 3 months, this may be one of the best UFCs ever. And I know that's tough to say with some of the ones you've had in the past, like McGregor and Khabib, and all we're at UFC 239, so you had 238 main events as well as the small fights, 3 or 4 to be exact in between each UFC big main event. So you've had roughly 600-700 UFC contests, and this might be the biggest one ever. And just to run down real quick, you have John Jones will be fighting on that card. And then just in the co-main event in fight number 2, and usually this will be a main event, but it's Amanda Nunes versus Holly Holm. Okay, and of course that division is waiting for someone to step up. Holly Holm has been sticking around. You remember she beat Ronda Rousey to win the championship belt and lost it to Nunes. Nunes has successfully defended the belt, and now Holly Holm has worked her way back to get a chance to compete for the title again, and do not count her out. Now, of course, Amanda Nunes has beaten everyone, even Cyborg. So there's no one that can stop her. She's #1 woman fighter in the world, bar none. Shevchenko can make an argument, but she lost to her head up. So Nunes, #1 in the world, it seems unbeatable. But it wouldn't be the first time someone that seems unbeatable lost. I think one of the biggest shockers I've ever seen was in boxing when Roy Jones Jr. lost for the first time. I remember being in shock when that happened. And anything could happen. Nunes could lose at any given time. But as long as everything goes the way it should, she's fighting in her hometown of Brazil. You got to believe that the UFC has set her up for success, and she's going to win
that big fight in fight number 2 at UFC 239. And when you start to go down the list on other fights, and we'll break those down next week as the event gets closer, but you'll start to realize this is going to be a powerful UFC event, because you can even go to fight 5 or 6 on down the list at the beginning of the main card and even in the prelims, and you're going to see ranked fighters. So up and down the card, there's going to be ranked fights, one after another after another. And if you just look at UFC Greenville this past weekend, it wasn't a main event, just a regular Saturday UFC fight. You only had 2 fights with ranked fighters. And you look at UFC 239, you're going to have 5, 6, or 7 of them. So that's going to make for a very exciting night at UFC 239. So again, check those out on the channel. Make sure you subscribe while you're listening. And the face-offs are now complete for media day. These aren't the ones where they come out, with no shirts on and in their fighting gear and things like that. These are the ones where they still got their regular clothes on, and they stand face-to-face, and they do interviews and things of that nature. But it's still something to see as you get pumped up for UFC 239 again in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil on July 6th. This is your boy Chris Cross 304. You're listening to the community. Stay tuned. After this, we'll break down the MLB standings and some surprising wins from yesterday. And that'll close out the show. So stay tuned for segment 3. This is your boy Chris Cross 304.
We saved. We saved. We saved. We saved. We saved. I'm spitting truth, you can get it if you want to. Undress your sin, ask him it's possible. Running through the field, well equipped for battle. Praise his name, make sure it's no hassle. Don't tell a lie, he can read your mind. Say the wrong thing, and it's best you hide. Feel his wrath at the end of the ride. Must be forgiven, or in Christ you die. No jokes here, let's encounter the light. Keep him in view, can't lose your sight. Jesus saves lives with all his might. All his might, all his might. How do you feel after you've been saved?